Hello, I'm Max Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm James Pendleton, and today I'm joined by Matt Slater of The Athletic. Matt, thanks very much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. How are you?
Yes, very good, thank you. You?
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Good, excellent. And I think I'm much better after the last couple of days, to be fair. And obviously, we'll dig straight into it. Obviously, big announcement earlier in the week that Everton look to have finally reached an agreement with a party to purchased the majority stake in Everton Football Club, and it looks to be the Friedkin Group. I think obviously yourself and Paddy Boylan and others did a sort of long read on the Athletic, and there was a podcast out today as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Was it yesterday? I'm losing track of days, but yes, we certainly did a podcast.
All right, it's okay. Yes, that's also over on the Athletic. You can catch that. So they do a good job of kind of giving you a rundown. But I think just to get started with Matt, a kind of broad question is: assuming this happens, and I think for all intents and purposes, it looks like it will. Is this a good thing for Everton in the long and short term?
Yeah. Well, that's a yes. Of course it is because Everton have been under so much uncertainty for so long. I don't need to tell you and your listeners, your viewers that. So yeah, this is undoubtedly good. Now, is it amazing? Is it great? Is it the best thing ever? Well, we'll see. Okay, every owner when they buy a club, or most of them, come with good intentions and big promises, and you certainly kind of start the journey with real hope and optimism. And I don't think there's any reason to not start this journey at Everton with the Freakins with that in mind. I mean, these guys are very wealthy. They have the situation in Rome is quite interesting. They certainly started well. They kind of took over when AS Roma were a bit of a distressed asset. There's similarities that I think there with Everton. AS Roma were playing pretty well, but they had real financial issues. And the previous owner, again, there are parallels, had spent a lot of money and had sort of kind of lost track of things a little bit. Um, they're genuinely rich. It's their money. Um, they started well, but they've had a couple. One main problem is they have not qualified for the Champions League. That's the sort of budget they had. They went out and got Mourinho. They spent big money, Lukaku. They went for it. Didn't get a Champions League qualification, but have been successful in Europe. So they have given fans something to get excited about. They won the Conference League. They went to the final of the Europa League. They went to two other semi-finals. They've been consistently good in Europe. Unfortunately, they've just consistently been sixth in Serie A, which isn't a disaster, but it is bad for if you're trying to balance the books and you kind of need Champions League football. So that's the situation. That's the general picture of what they've done in Italy. More recently, unfortunately, they've made a few missteps. As I said, they hired Mourinho, didn't work out. We've seen that story before, right? They then go with local legend hero Daniele De Rossi. He starts really, really well, gets him on the table, didn't finish the season so well. So the kind of you could sort of think that kind of initial bounce was it fading away. They give him a big contract, and that was sort of slightly was that them just getting a little carried away. And then 4 games into the season, he hadn't won a game. I think he'd drawn three. They sack him. And they appear to have sort of done it without running it past the chief exec. The chief exec has resigned. The fans are up in arms. So more recently, it's gone a bit south at Roma. I think it would be unfair, though, to sort of say it's all been bad because it hasn't. What lessons can we learn from this? I don't know. We shall see. Let's hope they've learned some. I think they're smart and bright, and you know they've put positive messages out to AS Roma fans this week, saying we're fully committed to you guys. They've got a stadium issue there as well, which is interesting that they bought Everton that have just solved or are in the process of solving your stadium issue. So I think that's quite interesting. They bought a French club as well last year, AS Cannes, their fourth tier. They haven't really done anything there yet. It's maybe too early to tell, but that's not the plan. But the idea is to get them at least up into Div 2. Um, so yeah, look, is this better than Mashiri? I would argue yes. Is this better than 777? Oh my word. So yeah, uh, I'm sorry it's been a long answer, but yeah, this is good.
Yeah, no, I say the broad question. I think it's important to factor in everything as you've done there. I think I was going to ask about obviously the other options as well, because that's the big thing is obviously everyone would say it's better than Mashiri. A lot of people would say it's better than 7-7. Is this a better option than John Textor as well, do you think? Because he looked most likely even this time last week.
Well, yes, I think it is, and you know, I've been talking to John Textor for quite some time. Uh, I sort of broke the story of his arrival in the game at Crystal Palace, and I've spoken to him many times over the last few years as his group, as his multi-club group has grown. So that's called Eagle Football. The big one he went for was Lyon. He spent a fortune buying Lyon. That obviously got him a women's team, and it got him there's a team in the US, a women's team over there, stadium, indoor arena. It was a big one. Um, that hasn't gone so well. He possibly overpaid. French football's going through a real bad moment with their TV deal, and Lyon. They had this incredible academy. The production line is sort of slightly slowed down a little bit, so he's got some issues in Lyon. The real problem when he bought into Palace, he I think thought he would get control, and he's got stuck. He's got stuck at 45%, which sounds like a big number. Unfortunately, the way their shareholder agreement works at Palace is it's only 25% of the votes, and the real guy that calls the shots there is Steve Parish. The other two shareholders are these two Americans, Josh Harris and David Blitzer, and they're just quite happy to go along with what Steve says. It's like, well, he's the local guy. He's been running a pretty good ship here. We're quite happy to be silent partners. Yeah, Steve. And he just doesn't buy into multi-clubs at all. So John Textor got himself stuck at Palace. So he has been looking around. He's looked at various clubs. Everton weren't the first, I'm afraid. Crystal Palace weren't the first either that he looked at. So he knows he needs an English club to make the multi-club model work. He's always had this vision of floating the multi-club model, Eagle Football, on New York Stock Exchange. He genuinely believes in sort of shareholder democracy, all that sort of thing. He's a capitalist, but nothing wrong with that. His thing is player trading. He genuinely thinks that's how you make money in football. Um, he bought this Belgian team called Molenbeek. They're kind of small. They went down. They're doing better this year. It's been a sort of a bit meh. His real success has been Brazil. He bought Botafogo. He was a real pioneer down there. The Brazilian league opened itself up to external investment, and he went in, and they nearly won the league last year, surprised everyone. They kind of fell apart at the end, and he's got into various rows about match fixing, and so he's the Botafogo fans like him. The rest of them are like, oh my word, who is this gringo? But they are having an amazing year. They're top of the Brazilian league right now. He spent big this summer. I think they broke the Brazilian record twice. So that's that's like when he does proof of concept. Look what I'm doing in Botafogo. Not so much look at Crystal Palace because he doesn't really have much say there, and he's just a bit frustrated and he's trying to sell. Leon, they were having a shocker last year, but he managed to they turned it around. He did get put a new coach in, and they did come sixth and get European football. So this year again looks bad. It's just my point is it's a mixed picture. The reason why I don't think he was the guy for you is that he had so many hurdles, and he got a bit carried away last week. Frankly, um, he just was not in a position to say those things. He cannot buy Everton. He cannot buy any other English club until he sells Crystal Palace, and he's either in denial or he's trying to sort of kind of ignore it and trying to sort of selling those shares is really hard because selling 45% when you only really equals 25% is not great. It's a discount, not a premium. He can't do his share option. He can't do his flotation, sorry, until he gets out of Crystal Palace. There's sort of a technical reason. I don't want to get too into that. Um, he's got a bit of a problem, and everyone knows that. He has no leverage at Palace, so he's not going to get a great price. Borrowed lots of money at Lyon. I just think he would have been distracted. It would have taken a long time. It would have been very complicated. I'm not quite sure he has the money. He's very good at raising money, borrowing money. He's not. He's not. The Friedkins are rich. The Friedkins are genuinely rich, and I just think Crystal Everton now. You need someone like that.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it was eye-watering, really, the sums that we're talking about with the Freakins in terms of their own wealth. I know that won't translate onto the pitch, it's certainly not in the immediate anyway. But do you think, looking at the two things we've just talked about there with the issues that he's had at Roma over the last couple of weeks with the Freakins, and then the fact that Textor had those issues last week, I think Everton came out and said they also weren't a big fan of the things he was saying. I think those two factors combined have had an effect on why Freakin have come back in kind of so out the blue, or?
It's a really good question, and it's one that we've all been wondering about because, as you'll know, he got into exclusive talks with Mashiri in June, and then walked away 4 or 5 weeks later. And the reason that the Freakins said they were walking away, it was two really. They were both kind of legal concerns. One was just, I think, some worry that a lot of the American groups have had over the last 2 years about the relationship between Mashiri and Usmanov, which I'm sure you've talked about, and I don't need to tell Everton fans about. The fact that Usmanov got sanctioned, and American banks and institutions are very worried about that. So it's just a bit of a headache. It's something that a lawyer would raise. It's a red flag, not necessarily a deal breaker. The bigger one was just the mess left behind by 777, and that's this whole situation that they are basically bankrupt. Their assets have been taken on by one of their big creditors, backers, ACAP, this big insurance firm. At the same time, 777 and ACAP are being sued by another firm called Leadenhall over money that they're owed. That is the subject of a big court case in New York that is ongoing and it's going to last for another year, probably. Leadenhall have got an injunction which stops ACAP from just selling stuff just to realize money, cash. So they can't just run around, sell, dispose of 777 assets that they've taken. It doesn't mean that they can't do it. It just means that they need to run it by the court first. Leadenhall have to sort of say, yeah, go on then, you can do that. And the court, the judge will say, okay, that's fine. That's you. We're not stopping you from doing your business, your regular business, ACAP. We're just making sure that you don't do anything kind of sneaky and sort of sell stuff and then just to benefit you and not and stitch up all these other people you might owe money to. So that's the process in New York. Freakin in July said, oh my God, I don't fancy that. I'm going to walk away. But he didn't walk away. That's the thing. He didn't walk away. He walked away from negotiations with Mashiri about buying the club right now. He lent the club money. He took on MSP without getting too many initials here, but another previous suitor. He took their position that they had secured on the stadium company. He lent Everton a bit more money to carry on the build at Bramley Moore, and he took loads of security. He's Freakin has been sitting there in plain sight, holding all the cards. And I think a combination of we are a little bit in here. Why, where's this going? This could end up with us anyway. Do we just let it drift? Do we let Everton have a really bad season and we open up in the Championship next year? That no one wants that. Or what's Textor up to? Can Textor really get this done? He sounds like he thinks he can. And I think at the same time, clearly conversations were going on in the background, and some lawyers have come up with a plan to sort out that 777 loan. And I think that last bit was the crucial bit, that no, there is a way actually that the court will approve and won't cost us an arm and a leg, and we can all move forward with certainty. So that is why I think they came back. And when they did come back, it happened really quickly. But a couple of sources had told me it was done in basically 4 days, the last bit. Reopen talks. I think the deal was done on Sunday night, announced on Monday.
Yeah, it's flew by really, to be fair, because I think we're on Wednesday now, so I think you are literally going back 7 days, and I'm thinking Textor, and I think everyone is, but again, you talk about the hurdles. It's not going to happen immediately, and that's another reason why Free can look so good from the outside. Moving forward, then Matt, in terms of the process of this getting actually done now, this feels again nothing's ever straightforward, but it feels relatively straightforward. I think in the article it mentions that this could all be wrapped up by Christmas. So just two questions for that. Do we think that's going to happen? It could well be done by Christmas. And if so, are Everton likely to be competitive at all in the January window, even if it's not to huge levels?
Well, the first bit, so I break into two parts. The regulatory bit, they're getting the FA, Financial Conduct Authority, and the Premier League to approve this, I think is done. Well, it's not done. There's a process. I'm not expecting any issues there.
Mhm.
The FCA bit and the FA bit really is a tick. Like, you're not a criminal, and they're not. The Premier League bit, there's a bit more give and take. Tell us about your plans. Let's see your budgets. Not going to be a problem. Really not going to be a problem. How quickly can they do that? If you look at the past, it's like 8 to 10 weeks. So that gets us what, end of November? I'm losing track of the diary here. Early December.
Yeah.
That's where I think that bit goes. That bit with the 777 loan, I think that has to be sort of sorted that can happen at the same time, but it does have to be done.
Mhm.
Um, I did check in with the whole process. I did ask Leadenhall and ACAP. They haven't gone to court yet to say, hello, judge, we have this plan for this loan. You may remember it. Da, da, da. They want to do this. Yeah, okay, you can do that. That hasn't happened yet. I don't know when it's going to happen. It, clearly, Friedkins and the clubs and Mashiri's lawyers thinks it's sorted. Otherwise, they would not have gone as hard as they went on Monday. That statement was pretty categoric. It's, the share purchase agreement has been done. Big announcement to Roma. We're still committed. Don't worry. I know we're buying Everton, but don't panic. That's pretty sort of certain stuff, isn't it? So that's my answer on that part. What can they do in January? Well, this where we come back to, I'm sorry, the whole PSR situation. Now, because of the process that you've been through, I think you did have a tiny bit of wiggle room. I think you should. You'll have more if you sell Branthwaite.
Mhm.
Do you want to sell Branthwaite?
Definitely not, but
Well,
need
there you
must if
go.
it's possible.
Well, yeah, I mean, it might sound unpalatable. It might sound like, why would we do that? Why would we sell one of our best players? Well, it's that sort of that old thing about, can one become two, can become three? How many holes do we have in the team? So you'd know
Mhm.
that better than me. You watch them, right? I think they'll have some wiggle room anyway. Enough to really change the team or tweak it. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Everyone knows that you have had a sort of a net spend for some time. But it was the lag effect of those first two really Mashiri years, compounded by COVID, then compounded again by losing the Usmanov sponsorship. Everton lost, I'm afraid. I know it feels painful. And how could we keep, but you just lost so much money. Even the last year was like 90 million, 2 million, almost 2 million a week. I mean, so that's a tanker to turn around. And the way the club is set up, the sort of cost base, you are losing money every month you're at Goodison Park. You just are. So that's an issue. That's why you need to move to branding more. You need to replace the Usmanov sponsors with better sponsors. You need to get up the table, earn some more bonus prize money, all that stuff. That is where the real freedom to spend again will come from. Look, I suspect he's come back now because he's aware that Everton might have to buy in January.
Right.
Could be loads. Otherwise, I don't understand the rush. If this last week has felt rushed, and I think it's because we really need to be in control in January.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause I think in terms of you're talking about the rushing and getting it done now. I think if you look at the managers in charge, obviously the season's not gone too well, but you probably got the right manager to keep a team up. If we don't need to strengthen in January, which we definitely do, we need a couple of bodies for sure. But if he couldn't do that, then maybe he would wait to the end of the season because he thinks the other thing he can really do is obviously maybe a feel good factor of coming in, but also is replace the manager or bring in new players. And I imagine he probably wouldn't replace the manager straight away anyway. So again, that could be another potential positive.
I think so. Look, again, you're the expert there. You're going to the games. You know the mood. I'm only watching match of the day and reading and listening to bits and bobs. I, I think the Dyche's position is interesting to me. He had a nightmare sort of hand dealt to him. Seems to do a good job, but I've never sensed there's much love. I don't think there's sort of like deep affection. Um, so it's not like he has loads. He should have some credit in the bank, but he's not like loads. So he needs the result. He needs some results, doesn't he? I mean, because otherwise he almost sacks himself. Regardless of who's in charge, you can't keep losing games. We'll see. I mean, he definitely does appear to. Again, this is just a neutral here. He's 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 quite good at this. He's quite good at sort of galvanizing and getting a tune out of a group, backs against the wall stuff. Um, I did see something the other day. I noticed he's quite highly paid, which I was quite surprised at. Relatively speaking, I think he's sort of definitely the top half. He's on about 5 million a year. Um, Bang for your buck. There's a whole trend at the moment in the Premier League of younger managers. I think there's three or four who are in their 30s, and some of these guys are good.
Mhm.
I don't know, but that's for later. Basically, just Everton can't go down. That's what the Freakins will be thinking. We we've got to open that stadium in the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%. That's been the key for well since the first of these big relegation season that we've had. Where else we're on the bounce now, so definitely don't want to go down this year. Absolutely. So that all sounds really positive, Matt. I'm sure there'll be some bumps and hurdles along the way, but hopefully that's Everton in a much better position, and we'll see what happens. But thanks so much for speaking to us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone. We'll speak to you next time and let us know your thoughts down below. Cheers.